Introducing your hosts from Collingwood, Ontario, Canada, Jack Edwards and his partner from Dallas, Texas by way of Port Arthur, Texas, Big George. Together, they are the North-South Connection.
Dallas, Texas by way
of Ladies and gentlemen, we are the North-South Connection. I am Jack Edwards. That's Big George. We're excited to be here on a Wednesday night. It's Wednesday night. You know what that means. John went to the ball game last night, so we couldn't do the podcast. That's what that means.
Exactly what that means. We don't have any other reason why we do a show on a Wednesday other than John's going to a baseball game on a Tuesday, or the least we play in the playoffs.
Yeah, not. We don't have to worry about that
or anything like that. So, but no, it's a really good Wednesday to kind of be on. How are things in Canada?
It's still cold. It's still chilly. Like it's May 20th, and it still has not really gotten warm, which I'm okay with. I don't like the heat, so it's going all right. I mean, we're still sad about the Leafs again, but there's an old saying we have here as Leaf fans: is like, when I die, I want the Leafs to be my pallbearers, so they can let me down one more time. I mean, but Jays won last night, and then they beat the brakes off the Padres tonight, so that's good news. And it's doing all right. How's and of course, sorry, I have to mention, if anybody out there is in the Simcoe County area, we got our big wrestling event, Wrestling Night in Collingwood 12 on June 7th here in Collingwood in support of the Special Olympics. So last year we raised $5,000. We're hoping to raise more this year. We've got a South Boston street fight between Jake O'Reilly and Daddy Davis, which is going to be a banger. So it's going to be a good show and exciting stuff. So we appreciate that. George, how's Texas?
It's getting hot than a bitch. Like, it's just, today was like one of those days where it's not necessarily the hottest day of the week, but it feels like, oh yeah, get ready for June and July. Like, I might do a show shirtless. Lies. Y'all not trying to come see that shit. But at the same time, it's getting hot out here. So I think it's time to start changing up the outfits. I done already started shopping for summer gear, so we gotta start, getting ready to get warm. But Texas is doing this old warm, hot thing right now.
George, you never know what people will buy until you try. So I mean, maybe who knows? Maybe Maybe it'll lead to the 5-count OnlyFans. Maybe that's what it'll lead to.
The 5-count OnlyFans. You know what? We are in marketing, so I guess that's how we do that shit. But
whatever. So tonight we have it's a great episode. Last week we did Bret the What If story. I'm Bret the Hitman Hart. If he had to come back to the WWF, what matches we'd like to see, and I think it's a really cool topic. So tonight we picked someone that's near and dear to George's heart. George is a massive fan of Sting. I like Sting. I definitely prefer Surfer Sting, but Crow Sting nonetheless was good. So the idea is that when WCW was bought, what if Sting had gone over in 2001 or so? What if he had been part of the Invasion? What if he had been part of that group? What were the matches that we wanted to see? And it's definitely one of the bigger what if stories, because that's, Sting only had a short run in WWE, not very big. And then, but it would have been cool to see him wrestle some of those guys of the era. Now, we gave Bret about 5 years. We could probably give Sting a little bit longer because he wrestled for 70 years after WCW closed. So, but George, Sting's your guy, so let's kick it off. Who's the number one? Who's the first person on this list?
So the first person on this list may not make the top of the top 5, but the reason why I have this match in place, because at the time it would have been one of the most controversial matches at that time, and he's one of the most controversial figures in WWE history. I want a match between Sting and Vincent Kennedy McMahon.
Sting! Wow.
Because who else to see out? Because the last match of WCW was Sting and Ric Flair. Sting was WCW through and through. Who else would you want to fight to take out your whole livelihood and buy it? So I want that match with Vince McMahon. you can have the McMahons. You can kind of count Vince and Shane in there. You know, they were doing tag team matches around that time. You know, so I want the McMahons versus Sting. I think that'd have been a great match to kind of put the nail in the coffin of WCW, which would have been the theme of the match. You can definitely see Vince McMahon. I want to take out the last Avenger of WCW. So let me get the McMahons.
McMahon. That's an interesting one. That's, I mean, not a bad idea. Definitely. So listen, for me, I got to throw this in there. It's the Big Evil Undertaker. Specifically, I want Big Evil Undertaker. I think that match would have been great because I think the Big Evil version of Undertaker is very underrated. I thought he was so good. And I definitely think that would have been a match that's, you still talk about, that's like the dream match everybody wanted to see of that time, just kind of the foundation of WCW against really the foundation of WWE. So, you know, I mean, it would have been cool. You know, it would have been cool in Toronto. It had to be Big Evil against, I love Ric Flair, but Big Evil against.
They've asked for that a lot. They've asked for that a lot.
That was the one. That was the one that people wanted to see.
That probably was the one match that I myself was like, when I seen WCW officially going over, like, I'm not saying I didn't try to pay attention to what TNA was doing because I didn't think about them being in the runnings for some of the WWE stars or WCW stars at the time. But it was still kind of just like a foregone conclusion that most people were going to jump ship to WWE. Kind of waited for it, but then again, you know, the appearance in TNA was actually where he went, and you know, I'm not upset about that. But I think the biggest thing about that was like the anticipation of the jump, and Undertaker versus Sting was finally going to happen at some point in the next year or two because everybody was coming at that point. Well, thanks, Chad Turner, for, you know, paying everybody everything that you can ever dream of from one job, which. I'm not gonna lie. The last few years of WCW sound like the American dream. I get to do what I love for more money than I'm actually supposed to. Why not? But I just, like I say, that match would have been. It's like one of those like storylines that you can't wait to see. Kind of like CM Punk and Roman Reigns after all these years, kind of thing. Like it's really one of those that I felt like would have put a nail in the Monday Night Wars coffin in a sense. Of that particular rivalry. But yeah, no, I really would have enjoyed, you know, Undertaker versus Sting. That any version of the Undertaker versus any version of Sting in my mind, because they would have matched up so well. So I don't mind the Big Evil pick at all. But my next pick is gonna shake the room up a little bit. I got Shawn Michaels.
That was going to be my pick. That was my next pick, Shawn Michaels.
If you don't think Shawn Michaels and Sting would have had one of the best matches known to man,
it would have really good.
It would have been great because one, their styles kind of mesh perfectly for the type of match they would have needed to have for it to be a very successful match. It wouldn't have had to been nothing crazy. It wouldn't have had to been no holds barred or anything like that. That could have been a regular 10 minutes in the ring on a Monday night. I would have got my popcorn, baby, because that would have been a great match to have at that point in time. Like, you couldn't ask for a better match at that point. Good technical wrestlers, great fanfare, good with the crowd, great hype. I mean, they got good friends in the business, so you can see a run-in happening in any one of their matches at the happen.
Yeah.
So, and it would be a pretty good series of matches and not just one.
Yeah, it wouldn't have just been one
thing. It wouldn't have been one. So yeah, I'm taking Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid, and Sting in some matches.
So I'm going to throw this out there because I don't know. For me, I always want to see people against this guy, and I think Sting would be a great opponent for him. Is JBL? I just think, like, imagine Sting working JBL for the title. Like, that would have been money, you know? Because he had some good opponents. He had Booker T and The Undertaker and John Cena.
Rey Mysterio and all that.
Yeah, all those guys. But adding Sting to that mix would have been awesome. And like, you know, a real, like, classic good guy, bad guy type thing. Like, because Sting was...
Absolutely. The ultimate vigilante good guy.
Yeah. Against JBL would have been... I think he could have really done something fun with that. And so, yeah, I like JBL in there. And I mean, this is a JBL Stan podcast. You and I both have an affinity for JBL and recognizing how good he was.
He's
What?
that guy. Like I think
So good.
JBL is so underrated because of him being a heel. And I feel like, it's hard to kind of find what I actually like about a heel. So I think that was kind of his thing that kind of made him that much better in my mind, because he could be so great at being so evil or so bad.
Yeah.
Like, you had a person who they really didn't give a mic to for a long period of time, and then when he got the mic, he was gold. So I love the fact that you put JBL in there, because you never know exactly how that would have worked, as far as him coming into the company and then kind of who he would have worked with. JBL would have been perfect because he's like the ultimate, it don't matter who you are, I hate you anyway. And so, and don't let him find out something about you that was a little bit of a thing, because JBL could go on for months and days about the same thing. So yeah, no, I'm definitely happy to see. I would be ecstatic to see that match.
Last week, didn't you mention somebody that you didn't think would be on the list? Or were we talking about something else?
Potentially.
I'm trying to remember. Anyway, nonetheless, we got to find a fifth one here. So, George, got any ideas? I got one that I would have liked to see. And they may have wrestled down the line, but I would like to have seen him at this point in time. Is Sting versus Rob Van Dam? Van Dam was so over at that time. I thought you could have put him right in with Sting. It would have been money. I think they would have worked fine together. Sting could really work with anybody. So I got Rob Van Dam as a possibility. There's a ton of other people in that WWE lineup that we could have been there. I mean, Stone Cold Steve Austin in like 2001 against Sting.
2001?
Yeah. Well, later 2001, I think would have been great against Sting. Even maybe if he was, So I mean, there's another one.
So here's the thing. I know he had a match with Triple H later in his career. But I really don't want to count that. I feel like that was like a novelty kind of, we just did it to say we did it kind of match. Him versus a younger version of Triple H.
I got it. The Rock. Sting against The Rock.
Now,
like, what are we thinking?
That would have sold. I don't know why we didn't think of The Rock. Maybe we were trying to not stay too big on the profile. I don't know. But The Rock would have definitely been a great pick. It's just
Hollywood Rock against Sting. Hollywood Rock. I think specifically Hollywood Rock against Sting. Like, like instead of imagine like Hollywood Rock against Sting, I think it would have been great. Like, can you imagine the promos The Rock would have cut? Like, I mean, it would have been money. I think, to me, you got to throw Hollywood Rock in the top 5, like against Sting. And I think let's be that specific. Because he was Hollywood Rock again. Sting was the ultimate babyface like type thing. So I think that's why I kind of lean with a lot of these guys more heels, and they had some good heels. So yeah. So what do you think, George? Hollywood Rock? Are we going to toss him in there?
Absolutely, you can throw to Hollywood Rock in there. I think that kind of rounds it out a little bit. I was going to throw in. I have 2 names that are probably going to be honorable mentions. I have Kane. Kane would have been a great match to have with Sting. Yeah. And then Mark Henry.
Mark Henry, huh? Okay.
Because 2006 Mark Henry was not necessarily Hall of Fame Mark Henry just yet.
A couple years later, though.
A couple years later. That's later on down the line. He was still World's Strongest Man, Mark Henry. Which at that point, he still could have been a little bit more aggressive at the point. But I feel like him and Mark Henry would have put on a great match simply because how athletic Mark is and how much he would actually work with Sting as far as giving him that strong man versus a guy who's relatively strong as well, who can work out and bodybuild and lift, large men, who's a giant killer in his own right.
Yeah, Sting would have worked well with him because Sting was a good size for him. Because Sting was big enough. But he was also like not overly big that Mark could kind of toss them around. It would have been a good match.
Right.
I definitely like that idea. Yeah. So we got this top 5, so we got to dole it out. So we have Vince McMahon or the McMahon. Well, probably just Vince. Undertaker, Shawn Michaels. We got JBL. And we got The Rock. I think you're on to something with Vince at 5. Definitely Vince at 5.
I would say
4 is
4.
It's JBL.
4 is JBL, definitely. 2 and 3 is where I was kind of, but 3.
Honestly,
Rock, Hollywood Rock, and
I got Shawn Michaels at 3. Shawn Michaels
I got
at
Shawn
3.
Michaels at 2.
Yeah, I'd put Shawn Michaels at 3. I think Hollywood Rock against Sting would have been better. With Undertaker's 1.
Undertaker automatically won. Everybody
and
in the world wanted that match. If you was never a WCW watcher, you wanted that match.
I think Hollywood Rock, just because of the Sting versus Shawn Michaels would have been great, but I think Hollywood Rock probably, to me, I would want to see that more just because of where Rock was in terms of heel and Sting as a babyface.
He was more entertaining at the time.
He was, and I think it would have carried it.
He definitely had a lot of, Rock charisma at that point. That was almost peak.
Oh,
Rock.
he was awesome. He was awesome.
I get what you're saying. But at the same time, I'm like this.
You want to go with you want to go Shawn Michaels at 2, and then Hollywood Rock at 3. There's the top 5. That's like the top 5 matches we'd like to see. Sting, Vince McMahon. It still makes me laugh.
I want to see Vince McMahon scream in a Scorpion Deathlock. I just want to see him in the middle of the match screaming. And that would have been a perfect segue for a heel turn for Austin in like an invasion storyline. Like, if they would have had some actual pieces in the invasion storyline,
it would have been better.
Much better.
Yeah, if they had Sting and Goldberg and guys like that.
I feel like that's kind of it. I feel like what happened in hindsight was they had that planned already that everybody was going to come, but they didn't realize how the contracts work as far as how much they were actually getting paid.
They weren't going to. Here's the deal with that. They were offering certain buyouts, like 50%. And I forget what the thing was with Sting, but he said, I remember him saying like he couldn't get his contract. So, but like Goldberg and Nash and those guys, they weren't giving up any money. So they were going to wait it out. And they did. And so it just wasn't fiscally responsible. But I mean, it would have been great if he had to come over. I just, it would have been, especially then when he was more in his prime and he could have, it would have had a lot of these awesome people to work with. I mean, we didn't even mention guys like Eddie Guerrero would have been cool to have him work with. Like,
I tried to avoid more WCW talent that kind of came over earlier because, of course, like Jericho, like that would have been a great match. Jericho versus Sting and in WWE at that point in time, like in the late 2000s, that'd have been awesome.
And like Umaga, you mentioned Umaga. I think that was the one last week that you said, but he would have been an awesome match. Umaga versus Sting, Batista against Sting would have been interesting to see. John Cena against Sting. Like all these people, like he could have
John Cena, especially.
Yeah, that would have been. Well, it would have been interesting how that would have went because, I would have liked to see Thugonomics John Cena against Sting, like when he was a heel, like early John Cena against Sting would have been awesome. So, but I mean, didn't happen unfortunately. But Sting had a long career after WCW, so you wished him, it was good for him.
Absolutely.
But too bad we never got it.
We did get some great matches that not necessarily happened on.
He had a good run in TNA.
He had a good
run in TNA. Good run in TNA.
Him, Booker T, Nash.
The whole the
$1 Million Club,
something like that. Scott Steiner was in it.
Yeah. Kurt Angle.
Yeah.
Kurt Angle had every belt in America.
The main event is the main event mafia.
Main event mafia, yes.
Yeah. So I mean, they had some great talent. So
a little shameless TNA plug right there. If y'all ever want to go watch some good TNA content,
watch
early TNA was great. Main event
it was
mafia
good
stuff. Aces and Eights. Like all
that was later, but like when it was the early TNA stuff, there was actually some really interesting stuff. That's one of the reasons why they have TNA Plus, which is probably worthwhile. But so Sting, what a run! But George, I tell you, it would have been cool. I mean, we're gonna keep doing these what ifs. I'm not sure who we're gonna go do next. I mean, so we'll take a look at it. I watched Dark Side of the Ring last night. I don't know if you ever see it, but it was on Daphne from WCW.
Really?
Yeah, it was on her. It was It was too bad. I mean, it was nice in that you got the real picture, and from everything everybody's said and everything I've ever heard is that she was a really, really great person and, loved wrestling, but she was unfortunately had bipolar disorder. And, but it was well done. It was really, they did a good job at it. I thought they did a really nice job. And so like, it was, they had some good seasons. I mean, I didn't watch all the Billy Jack Haynes one because it was just too much. It was too much, like, really just too much. But the Sheik one was awesome. Like they really dialed in with the Sheik and really kind of. So I thought they had some really good ones. Next week is the last one. It's Muhammad Hassan. Yeah, which is cool. Really? Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, because it's like it'll talk about his rise, and then after the London bombing, they just yanked the dude off television.
Yeah, I was like, what happened to that? Like. Muhammad Hassan didn't have a bad run. It just didn't seem like it was not.
It didn't last long. Well. It was, and like the guy was like he wasn't like I don't think he was an Arab American or anything like that, or I don't think he was from the Middle East. He was I think he was Italian. But he did a good job. I mean, whatever they asked him to do, he did a good job.
I got us.
Yeah, he is. I think he was an Italian guy, but
that's horrible.
They did. I mean, that's what they asked him to do, and he did a good job of it. I mean, people wanted him dead. I mean, he was a pretty hot heel at the time. He had that old school Heat type vibe. So, and you got to give him credit. Like, wasn't his idea?
Was different. Like, Heat is you can't watch your car yourself.
Yeah, I think he had that. I think at that time they really and it was like one of those times where they took real life and kind of. But I mean, I'll tell you what, like,
lines,
yeah. He was very, very he did a good job. I mean, for what they asked him to do, it's the old saying, make it work. He made it work. Maybe too much. Like he made it work maybe too much. And they went far with it, of course. Mm. But, and then it got taken, to Off TV. But I'm sure it's an interesting story. So I'm excited to see that. I've been, really digging into those. They do a really good job. And, they pick some really good stories this time. Some. It all depends on what you feel. Some of them can get very, very, some of them can get somewhat dark and stuff like that. And with the Daphne one, I was kind of worried about it because it's, dealing with her depression. But I thought they did a nice job of really kind of, highlighting, I guess, what kind of person she was, and it was really, the whole thing was just so unfortunate and sad. But it was, and Crowbar was in it, and Crowbar talked about the pairing, which I thought was all right. I didn't mind it when they were David Flair and Crowbar. I mean, like David Flair, people talk about him, like people crap on him all the time, but it's like that dude just was thrown on TV. Like he didn't really have a ton of experience. And
and you could tell it was.
And it's Ric Flair's son. Like you got an albatross. Like Ric Flair, you're never going to be Ric Flair, never. But I mean, he took the David Flair thing with Crowbar, and they made it something. Like people remember that gimmick. So, they did a good job. And he's like, she's the one they remember. They really do. Like out of that pairing, Daphne's the one that kind of was. You could tell she was kind of the star of the group, but like wasn't set up to be that way. But I think she definitely had happened that way. And but and it talks about some of the injuries she had and. It was unfortunate, but she's, it was a well done documentary. So, yeah, I've been liking most of them. I didn't like the one on Ludwig Borga. That one didn't that one
didn't hit home for you.
Too much. It just like at the end, like he didn't have a long wrestling career. Mm-hmm. So after that, it was kind of like just all his government and politics stuff, and it was just a bunch of crazy stuff. So. That one I wasn't a big fan of, but a lot of them, like they really hit this year. They really did a good job. So I'm going to keep my eye on that. I'm still looking. I still think we should look at doing some sort of a live stream kind of thing on Twitch, and look at looking back at some old WCW. Another thing I checked out this week, George, is that you might find interesting is sometimes I go back in the archives of Eric Bischoff's podcast because I don't watch it every week. Mm-hmm. But I listened to the one he did where they talked about how the deal when he was going to be by WCW because there was a time that he and a group were going to buy it, and it was announced and then it fell through. But he told the whole story, and for me, it was like I'm a bit of a wrestling, like obviously I promote wrestling, so the business of wrestling is interesting. And just how he told the story of how it all came together. It was a really interesting podcast. And then I checked in a couple other ones of his, and he's great because he's like, especially when there's things when he's in charge, because he can give you interesting information, but when he's in charge of WCW. So yeah, I've been checking that out too. So George, have you been watching any Raw, SmackDown? What you've been keeping track of?
So what's keeping my interest as far as watching SmackDown a little bit is the fact that Jacob Fatu and Solo are finally fizzing and bubbling. You got a couple new faces around SmackDown that are making some splashes. Jeff Cobb has come in and he's kind of made a little bit of a splash with the bloodline there. Of course, you definitely kind of have to look into and consider how people kind of just look into how he, has fit into this whole thing. It's that's all I've been watching, just kind of seeing how they've been unfolding. It's been a while since we've seen Cody on TV, so
yeah, they'll take their time with that.
Yeah, they're building that perfectly because of course you can't knock them off too fast. So
listen,
waiting on the return.
You know who's been awesome, and everyone's gonna hate me for it, but Logan Paul, man. That guy is money, just money. He's just like the Dallas Stars. Sorry, George, to interrupt. The Dallas Stars have scored 5 unanswered in the third to take the lead over the friggin' Oilers.
Let's go, baby.
Yeah. But nonetheless, like Logan Paul, like just the thing he did with Gunther was a great promo, where they're starting to turn Gunther babyface a little. Which I like. I love him. Like he comes in, like he's a great foil for Jey Uso because he's such a dick, and he's one of those natural heels. Like people legitimately hate him, and I like it because like if people say, "Oh, he's a part timer," I'm like, never really bothered me, as long as the guy, as long as they're an athlete. Like I like the athletes getting involved, not so much the singers. Men and women. Right. I just think he's been money. I mean, and just his ability to get heat, and people just do not like the guy. So I've been digging him. The Jacob Fatu, Jeff Cobb, who's JC Mateo. I think that's his new handle in WWE. And I mean, he looks like, they're fine. They're going to stretch that Solo and Jacob Fatu thing out. They're going to make us wait on that. But the day he's like, I hate you, Solo, is going to be one of the biggest pops in the world. Easily. And that guy just does some crazy stuff for a big man. He's a big man, so I definitely like him.
Size, people underrate how much he can actually move.
So
like he can do so many things as quick as a hiccup. Like his body control is insane. Because to be a big guy and no body control is tough. Trust me, I know. Like once you I put it to you like this: once you're going in one direction, you basically have to start going another direction to stop. So it's like it's a moving thing. So if you can move that quickly, that fluently, just be able to kind of do a moonsault that quick off the top rope, baby, you're doing something in that weight room. So he's
absolutely
definitely a big mover. Like I love the fact that he's a great body style mover. Like he literally can work with anybody because he's so agile right now. So I love it.
Yeah, and I still am pegging LA Knight for Money in the Bank, but I think Karrion Kross is on the come up too. I think he's really getting a lot of play.
Kross winning it. I can see.
I could actually really could. That'd be great. Let's make a new star. And then I didn't see the whole episode, but I saw the guy from LFG, Jasper Troy, attacked Obafemi. Yeah, yes. So they wrapped up LFG. Apparently, they're starting a new season next month. Like let's just get it going. Yeah, okay. I So yeah, he attacked him. He's a big guy. Jasper Troy is a big athletic dude, and so he had him. So it was cool. I mean, but there's a lot of stuff happening there, and then I'm always keeping my eye on the old stuff. WCW had a good one. There was I watched Clash of the Champions, Raging Cajun from New Orleans Superdome in 1989.
Please. I'm gonna tell you right now, WCW's old pay-per-views, I'm starting to get an addiction to them because they, put the channel on
They put some
YouTube.
of
It's so much like nostalgic memories. Like these shows were long, but they were great. They were so great. Like the storylines, the hype around them, the propaganda that kind of came with them. Everything was just chef's kiss, classic wrestling.
Yeah, they had the one that I watched. It was the Ricky the Dragon Steamboat Ric Flair 1 hour draw.
Mm-hmm.
2 out of 3 falls in the Superdome, and I mean it was just great. I mean they did they never slowed down. They never really had never had a pace where they just kept going, and it was good. It had who else was it? JYD wrestled Butch Reed, which was funny because like a few years before they had a street fight in the Superdome that drew big money. I forget who else was on there. The Midnight Express wrestled the Samoans. So it was a really cool Clash of the Champions. They're starting to really put some stuff on there that's it's just dynamite. Like it's just so good because I'm glad they're starting to log more and more. And there's always they have some WCW Saturday, like not Saturday night episodes, but like when they were just World Championship Wrestling, like 89, 90 that are good. But they've got a lot on Monday Night Wars WCW, which is just phenomenal. So
Monday Night Wars WCW, that content is always something that's long and drawn out that I can watch all day, every day. I don't know how many times I've gone back and just watched Rey Mysterio get launched into the side of a trailer by Kevin Nash, but it's classic information that you have to know that actually happened.
Classic.
It's like, they were asking to do some of the most off-the-wall things at that time because not only was the show good, but they knew they were competing with another program that was already big. So it was fun to watch in the aspect of you see these people actually doing their god-awful best to kind of make it a little bit better as far as the show. So I enjoyed it. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, I love some classic old school WCW. Sign me up every day.
Yeah. So, George, we got the list. We got Sting. We'll have to think of another name next week. We'll have to think of another what if because I really like talking about those. Those are like.
I know a perfect what if.
What's that?
Umaga never had his run. So I would say Umaga could be a what if. Give him 5 to 6 more years. Because I would say some of the competition that kind of came in a little bit later would have definitely been a good opportunity for him to get his title shots. Because I can see him taking that title belt off of John Cena at some point. Yeah,
and you could look at the timeline and figure out who he could have worked. So yeah, definitely we could do Umaga. And I'm trying to think of some other ones, but definitely maybe Umaga. That'd be all right. I have to think of the time. I have to sit down. I'll have to do some research on it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
one of the what ifs that I feel like like I said, he had a lot of possibility. It wasn't just
he was really good
feuds that you saw immediately. I feel like what Jacob Fatu is doing right now,
Umaga was kind of doing
the same kind of run in a sense, but I'm not saying I see more coming from Jacob Fatu, but I can see where the Jacob Fatu train is coming. So
unfortunately, just because of like what happened, Umaga didn't have the other half to the rest of his career, and unfortunately, but Jacob Fatu, I think, is going to be. Yeah, I think he's going to be at a different level for sure. Just because they put a mic in his hand and he just took it over, right?
He can work with the mic a lot better because of
Umaga never got a chance, right? Because he was kind of a Samoan savage type thing, so it was never really in his bag. But he was a hoss, man. I still love that John Cena match he had at the Royal Rumble. I still think it's one of Cena's best matches ever.
Best matches ever.
Yeah. So and then. He and Bobby Lashley, when they had the Battle of the Billionaires, had a good run, and I hope he got a good payday.
The only thing about that for me was I felt like the Battle of the Billionaires was kind of, all right, out of two people.
But Vince got his head shaved, and that was funny, and it worked out pretty good. But yeah, definitely. Like even like I like a good what if I like is like if Shawn Michaels didn't have to retire in 1998. You know, like who could he have worked with throughout the Attitude Era? Could we have seen more? Could we have seen Eddie Guerrero versus Shawn Michaels? Or that's not that to me that's the biggest. That might be one of the biggest what if matches ever. Just anything like is Shawn Michaels against Eddie Guerrero was like that's the one that's like I wish we had been able to see it. I wish. It's unfortunate what happened, but so.
The what if stories are definitely going to be starting to pile up because there's a lot of what if stories that you can actually kind of look into. I feel like there were certain tag teams that have what if stories that we can kind of tap into as well. The tag team division was definitely one of those that you can never sleep on because of some of the tag teams that were put together at certain times. Some tag teams didn't get to last long enough simply because of certain things. Not saying that we're kind of trying to get an Enzo Amore story popping off in here, but there were some tag teams that never really took off because of other reasons for whatever that was.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that we can kind of figure out something for you guys down the line.
Tag team's a good idea. We'll have to.
Tag team's definitely something that we got to look into.
But George, I think it's going to be. I think it's getting late for me. I'm old now. I've been working my tail. Yeah, well, the ball game too much. That's what I've been doing. But it's been a busy week. But I'm excited. We got that big show coming up, which will be good. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And I think we might have something else for you coming up too. But George, the list is tonight, and I think it was a good one. Vince McMahon, JBL, Hollywood Rock, Shawn Michaels, and Big Evil Undertaker. Those are the names we would have liked to have seen Sting wrestle. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for joining us. George, any last words?
Well, it's Wednesday, hump day, so hopefully you guys have a wonderful week. It's been a lovely presentation talking about one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. Of course, everybody knows that, Sting is the greatest wrestler of all time. I don't have to tell y'all that, but we did a whole presentation on him today.
You do have to tell it. You do have to tell it. You're going to have to.
Look, the work of 40 years in the ring has told its own story. They don't let you wrestle more than 3 days if you can't do it. And my man did it for 40 years, teaching the young bucks how to go ahead and do everything that they know how to do. And being just as
literally teaching the young bucks.
I'm just saying, just as mysterious as he was when he decided to drape that white and black. So, hey, I love it. I think that the fact that we can kind of take the what if stories and kind of build them and kind of put our own little spin on it, like what we would have wanted to see if certain, celebrities and superstars kind of, got the chance to face each other. So, drop some names. We'll definitely kind of, put a little bit of a spin on it. If you guys have a name that is a really good contender for a what if story. Give us your best what if scenario. Like sometimes there's a what if scenario that you can think of a little bit better than I could, of course.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I say, I want to know. I want to kind of get you in a part of the conversation. So, like I say, share, subscribe, kind of sign in, and just kind of see what we're doing.
Yeah. Anyway, folks, have a good night. We appreciate you joining us.
Peace.